Hi guys and welcome back to the Mighty Blues. My name is of course Cameron and welcome back today to another live stream. It is the live game review. Fleetwood Town 0, Everton 1 on Tuesday evening. Everton cruising very slowly into the Carabao Cup third round with the win away to Fleetwood. Everton will play Bournemouth away from home in the third round of the Carabao Cup. The draw was done yesterday, and I believe that fixture is set to take place on the same week as the Premier League fixture away at Bournemouth as well, which obviously would mean that there is two very long trips for the travelling Toffees within the space of a week, because Bournemouth is right at the bottom of the country. It's not a quick journey whatsoever, especially not on a coach which is sticking to 60 odd miles an hour on a motorway. So two very long journeys within the same week down to Bournemouth, obviously after Everton were pulled out of the hat to play them away from home in the third round of the Carabao Cup. And the reason we were in that hat, the reason we were pulled out against Bournemouth, is because of Tuesday night's win against Fleetwood, which was, as I said on Tuesday, during the instant match reaction and the player ratings, not the most exciting game of football we've ever witnessed, not the most, enthralling game of football, not the best performance we've ever witnessed by any sense or stretch of the imagination. However, it was enough, and it was a performance that, was enough to obviously to see us through into the next round. It was comfortable, is what I would say, and I think, look, Everton have often had these games over the years where we've played lower league oppositions in the early rounds of cup competitions, and very rarely do we go out and just, beat these teams 3-4, 5-0, although we'd love for us to do that just once, although we'd love a professional performance where we go out and we just, we absolutely demolish one of these sides and we show our real quality and we actually show the difference between a Premier League team and a League One team or a League Two team. Although that would be the absolute dream, it never, ever quite happens. And not just with Everton, it doesn't really happen very often with other football teams either, unless you're the sort of top side, your Chelseas, your Cities, your Liverpools. Not many other Premier League teams go away to these lower league sides and absolutely wipe the floor with them. I mean, we've seen Leicester only manage to get through on penalties on Tuesday night as well. But we've seen a lot of these games that have involved Everton and lower league opposition in the early rounds of the Cup, and they've not been comfortable. We might have won them, but we've been taken into extra time. I think about Hull last year, obviously, was taken into extra time and was, again, a really poor performance that we only managed to scrape through on. Obviously, we then went to QPR and lost to QPR. Millwall, I think, back to a few years ago as well. We've had a lot of these games against lower league opposition where we've either won, but we've made it extremely difficult, i.e., the opposition team have had periods in the game where they've been much the better side, or we've gone to extra time or penalties, or we haven't won at all. We've ended up losing the game. So, when I was watching this on Tuesday, although I was fighting the urge to fall asleep because it was an extremely boring game of football, and I'm not too sure quite how long this review is going to be because, let's be honest, nothing really happened within the game. Although it wasn't specifically exciting, although it wasn't unbelievable to watch, it was comfortable. I think barring a couple of comfortable saves for Asmir Begovic, and I know, they were good saves and he had to make them and he had to be there, etc. And, I think he does deserve praise for that, especially given obviously he's not on number one and he stepped in for the first time this season, and, ultimately that is difficult for him. However, they weren't unbelievable, world-class saves. They weren't saves that you're sitting here saying, oh my God, how did he manage that? They were saves that if he didn't make, we'd all be sitting here having a go at him for not being good enough. So, barring a couple of comfortable expected saves from Asmir Begovic, we weren't really under threat whatsoever, were we? And you know what? I suppose if you're a Fleetwood fan, you might be able to say that about from a Fleetwood point of view as well. I'm sure they'll be able to say, barring a couple of opportunities and obviously, the goal which come from ultimately a mistake. Everton weren't a massive threat to them either, and we weren't, to be honest with you. We weren't. We had one or two opportunities, as I said, other than the goal, and other than that, in a 90-minute game of football, there wasn't an awful lot that went on, but maybe that was because Everton got a goal, fairly early on in the game. And I think from that point on, as I said, we're just in cruise control, really. It was comfortable, and whilst it wasn't the most exciting game of football to watch, I think maybe Frank Lampard realised that a lot of those players that were playing, certainly from the midfield upwards on Tuesday night, will be playing on Saturday against Brentford away. I sat here a couple of days ago and said if we don't have a striker in before the weekend, I'll be extremely, extremely annoyed. And we sit here on Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening, which means we've got until, 12 o'clock tomorrow afternoon to sign a striker. And given the fact that we're not really being linked with anyone, we're being linked with players, but there's nothing seriously in the pipeline, the assumption is that we won't have a striker signed by this time tomorrow, and that would mean that obviously we'll be relying on Solomon Rondon again, who showed against lower league opposition on Tuesday that he's not very good. He's a handful and he puts himself about, and we know what he can bring as sort of a target man and somebody to lump the ball up to. But in terms of a goal scorer, in terms of somebody that's going to win you the game of football, scoring an important goal or creating an important chance, he isn't going to do that because he's just not good enough to do that. He wasn't good enough to do that against the side in from League One. Never mind, away from home in a game in a Premier League game of football. So it looks like that will be the case, and I think that's maybe why we sort of, I don't want to say took our foot off the gas because we're not very good anyway, but I think maybe that's why it was a little bit more conserved and comfortable, especially in that second half. And as I said, it wasn't the most exciting game of football, but at the end of the day, it was our first win of the season. It was an away win, and hopefully it was a win that will give the team confidence, albeit, it was against the lower league opposition and stuff, and it was in the cup, but hopefully that's a win that, the players and the manager can take confidence from and go into Saturday's game against Brentford and put in a better performance than what we've seen recently, because let's be honest, the performances recently just have not been good enough. I am extremely worried. Obviously, we've been linked with a couple of players over the last couple of days, Che Adams being, I think, the main one. I think it's clear that Che Adams is the target from an Everton point of view, the number one target. Ralph Hasenhüttl has come out today and said he's our player and there's absolutely no way he's being sold, which in football doesn't actually mean there's no way he's being sold. It just means that Southampton are very, very, very much sticking to their guns of that, he's important to them. And basically, if he is to leave, Everton are going to have to pay a significant amount of money. A little bit similar to the Anthony Gordon situation at Everton. I remember Frank Lampard saying that, not so long ago, Anthony Gordon's our player and he won't be sold. And now it looks like Anthony Gordon, will be a Chelsea player over the coming days. So yeah, Che Adams seems to be the one. Garassi obviously is creeping up every now and then, but again, it's just rumours for about talks at the moment. And in terms of other striking options, there's not really anybody else that we're being linked with. Brenton Diaz from Blackburn is in the news as well. He is being linked, but again, it's just at a talk stage. So I think it's safe to say we won't have a striker in by Saturday afternoon, which means it's safe to say we'll be relying on Solomon Rondon, who's just played 90 minutes on Tuesday, to be able to step up and play another 90 minutes in the Premier League this time. But anyway, I digress. That's for another video. We might do another live stream a little bit later tonight, a late one. Because we like the late ones, don't we? We might do a late one tonight where we talk about the latest news and updates and stuff like that. But the game, as I said, Frank Lampard did make a number of changes, to be fair, especially in the defence from the team. Obviously, that drew to Nottingham Forest in the Premier League last Saturday. We saw Lasmir Begovic obviously return in goal, as I said. Ruben Vinagre making his first start for Everton at left back. Nathan Patterson did remain at left wing back, and we had a completely different defensive three, didn't we, of Reece Welsh, Michael Keane and Seamus Coleman, which I actually thought was an interesting combination. Nice to see Reece Welsh getting a game as well. Nice to see him being given that opportunity. Obviously, I fully expected Michael Keane to start, and I fully expected Seamus Coleman to start as well. In fact, I expected Seamus Coleman to start at right wing back, so the fact that he started at right centre back was a little bit of a surprise. Amadou Onana made his first start for Everton Football Club in the midfield and was due to be alongside Tom Davies. However, in typical Everton fashion, Tom Davies somehow picked up an injury in a warm-up. Now, this is something that always surprises me. Don't get me wrong. Injuries happen. And, injuries happen during games or, in tackles and stuff like that. And they're very easily explained. You can see that. You can understand it. Football's a contact sport and sometimes people get hurt in that contact. But a couple of things I've not really got my head around is players getting injured in training, because that says to me that either the training is far too physical and there's absolutely no need for it to be that physical, i.e. people throwing in silly challenges when they don't need to, or players doing things that are too rigorous on their body when there's no need to, or B, that every one of our squad is just made out of paper, and the condition of these professional footballers who are paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, some even hundreds of thousands of pounds a week, millions of pounds a year. The condition of these people just simply isn't good enough, which is a big problem. But also injuries in warm-up. Now, I know it's not an Everton thing, and I'm not saying, this only happens to Everton, because it happens to a lot of teams, but how can a professional sportsman get injured whilst warming up? What are you doing? Now, okay, again, his foot might have planted poorly, or he might have felt a little bit of a twitch, and the manager didn't want to risk it, so he took him out of the equation. We haven't heard about Tom Davies. Frank Lampard's got his press conference tomorrow morning. I think it's at 9:30 or 9 o'clock, something like that. And not, again, another different time, different week, different time. I'm sure we'll hear about Tom Davies then, but it just doesn't surprise you, does it? When you're hearing players getting injured in warm-ups, it's like, what the fuck's going on here? How does that even happen? But anyway, Tom Davies picked up an injury. He was replaced with Demarai Gray, which meant Alex Iwobi dropped back into the midfield. Alex Iwobi was originally meant to start the game as a wide player. Gray come in to form a front three of Demarai Gray, Solomon Rondon and Dwight McNeil. And obviously Alex Iwobi, as I mentioned, was back in the centre of midfield, back in the position where he's thrived recently, and another absolutely unbelievable man of the match performance for me from Alex Iwobi. It would have been really, really interesting to see how he would have performed as a winger in this one, to be honest with you. When the team news was announced, I was actually looking forward to seeing how Alex Iwobi was going to perform out on the wing, because obviously, the last few games he's been in the centre of midfield, and he's played so well in the centre of midfield, but obviously we never got to see that. And as I said, I think the game was sort of as you would expect it. They are a very, very, very physical team. Fleetwood, as I said in the game preview, expect them to be a very physical team, because they're managed by a player who was extremely physical in his day at Celtic. Scott Brown was one of the players over in the Scottish League that other players didn't really fancy playing against, didn't really fancy going in for a tackle against. He was physical. He wasn't afraid to get in people's faces. He wasn't afraid to throw a challenge in. He wasn't afraid to lead. He was that type of player. And as soon as I saw those Fleetwood players flying in with challenges and throwing stray kicks out and kicking people off the ball, I wasn't surprised in any way, shape or form, because that's exactly how Scott Brown used to play his game when he was playing. What I was surprised by was the fact that, I can't remember what the lad's first name was, but their right back, Rooney, managed to stay on the pitch, considering within 5 minutes of the game, he'd volleyed Iwobi completely off the ball. And when I say off the ball, I don't mean it was a late tackle and the ball was near. I mean, the ball was literally in a different stadium, and he just volleyed him for no reason whatsoever. About 5 minutes after that, he dragged Nathan Patterson down by his neck, and then about 10 minutes after that, he went over to Ruben Vinagre again, completely off the ball. I think Onana had the ball in the midfield, and he just threw Ruben Vinagre into the advertising board. So how he managed to stay on the pitch is absolutely beyond me. If there's any Fleetwood fans watching, that fella's not a footballer. I don't care what anybody says, that fella is not a footballer. He's a fella that I'd had a bad day at work, working in an office. Fleetwood was scrambling around for last-minute right-backs because their right-back had got injured, and they drove down the high street. They'd seen him in a suit, fucking fuming, because his boss had just told him off. He hadn't met his targets in work. His dinner was fucking freezing because the microwave wasn't working. His drink spilled all over his desk. He might be getting a sack in the morning, and they've just gone, do you want to come and have a game of footy, lad? And he's gone, do you know what? Yeah, go ahead. Because there's not a chance on this planet that he was a footballer. But other than him, the rest of that Fleetwood team were also very physical. It wasn't just him. It was just the fact that he done it in a way that absolutely should have seen him sent off, whereas the rest of the Fleetwood players were going in heavy in challenges. I think it was a very much welcome to English football for Amadou Onana. I think he was fouled 7 times in the game. Every time he went down. Interesting with Amadou Onana, because he made his debut against Nottingham Forest on Saturday, and every time he went down in that game, I thought he's going to get sent off here, and every time he went down on Tuesday, I thought he's going to get injured here. But again, they made it tough, they made it physical, and I think Everton done well to remain professional in the sense of not getting involved in that fight, not getting involved in that sort of tussle, keeping it their heads and keeping the calm and keeping it to a level where we didn't get involved. Now, don't get me wrong, on occasions, if it was a Merseyside derby or if it was a really important game at Goodison, then you would expect Everton to be involved in that physicality. You would expect players to sort of get in other players' faces and stick up for their teammates and stick up for the football club. But in a second round fixture of a Carabao Cup against a team that are only doing it because they want to sort of intimidate and they want to, they want to catch it out, there's no need to get involved because you're playing into their hands. And I thought the likes of Iwobi, Onana, even Vinagre, who was fouled his fair share of times, I thought they'd done well to just sort of win the foul, get the free kick, and get on with it, and don't get involved in that tussle. But yeah, as I said, Everton were relatively in control for the majority of the game, certainly the majority of that first half. We had a couple of half chances going forward. Dwight McNeil had one, which I still can't quite compute how he got it so badly wrong. The ball was cut back into him in a really, really, really good position. And for some reason, given the fact he was facing away from goal, he attempted to shoot with his left foot instead of his right foot. And as you would expect, the ball went nowhere near the goal and he ended up putting it out for a goal kick. And I just remember thinking, if you're that left-footed and you can't use your right foot, then strap it with your right foot and bring it onto your left, move your body and curl it in. The angle he was at, he was never, ever, ever going to be able to hit that ball anywhere near the goal with his left foot. WP, you're an absolute weapon, you mate. See you later. Yeah, he was never, ever, ever going to be able to direct that on target in any way, shape or form. So I really, really, really don't know why he even attempted it, to be very honest with you. I wasn't impressed with Dwight McNeil on Tuesday, that is what I will say. And listen, I'm a fan of Dwight McNeil. If anybody that was here when we done the announcement video, anybody that has been here over the last few weeks will know that every time I've mentioned Dwight McNeil, I've said that I think he'll be a success. I think he'll do well for Everton. I think he will ultimately come good, and I think in the right system with the right players around him, he will be a success. He's not a striker, so when we seen him come on, the other day against Nottingham Forest, it was very clear that he wasn't going to have any impact on the game because he's not a striker, and he's not necessarily somebody you can rely on to score goals. So when he's coming on, in games like Tuesday night, or when he's starting in games like Tuesday night to be a goal scorer and to be a game changer, I don't really think he's that. He's not quick at all. So I'm not even quite sure his best position is on the wing because he just hasn't got the pace for it. And I thought he was poor. I did think he was poor. I thought Tuesday was the type of game that you would expect him to, grab by the scruff of the neck and really sort of run with. And, as I said, take it by the bollocks and run with it and absolutely, run rings around a team that were very, very, very limited in terms of their quality. A lot of fight, a lot of desire, a lot of effort, but in terms of their quality, very, very, very limited. And he didn't. He just wasn't involved whatsoever. I thought Damari Gray done well. Obviously, he scored his goal, had a couple of other chances, and I thought Damari Gray, although he didn't do an awful lot beyond the goal, I thought he was always comfortable with the ball. You could tell he was always a threat. I don't think any defender caused him any issue. I don't think any midfielder caused him any issue. He was very comfortable on the ball. He was very comfortable moving it about. He just had a really sort of comfortable game. And that's probably what he needed because it was good for his confidence. It helped him build his confidence. He got the goal, which obviously would have helped him build his confidence as well. But also, it was good for the fact that he didn't have to do a ridiculous amount of running around, which obviously meant that he will hopefully be at a decent level of fitness come the game at the weekend, because he will be needed. He will start at the weekend. And as I said, hopefully that the goal he scored will also give him a further boost in confidence after his goal against Forest at the weekend. But McNeil was just the opposite. He was just the absolute opposite. He didn't bring anything. He didn't show us anything that makes you think, yeah, do you know what? This kid's got a bit. And he has got it, because we know he's got it, because we've seen it at Burnley. We know he's got a great left foot. We know he's got quality. We know he's got ability. But he just didn't show it on Tuesday. And that was the type of game that you really, really, really would expect him to show it in my opinion. And he didn't. Obviously, we get the goal. As I said, a couple of sort of half opportunities. Demarai Gray's having a couple of half opportunities where he's, trying to cut in on that right foot and, have a go a little bit like the goal against Arsenal. I think for the last couple of games he's been trying to recreate that one. And there was a couple of chances where, where he tried to do that and they were blocked. They had a couple of half chances as well where they had shots from outside the box and, as I said, comfortably collected, comfortably saved by Asmir Begovic. And then the goal comes, really, really nice bit of play. McNeil picks it up, obviously comes from a mistake, which is, I suppose you could say, another worry that the only goal we managed to score against the League One side come directly from a mistake. But we all know the issue with Everton at the moment. We all know the issue with this Everton team. We all know what the problem is, and the problem is that we haven't got goals in this team. It's absolutely as simple as that. There's no other way of putting it. The problem with this team at the moment is that there's just no goals whatsoever. There's no creativity. There's no goal scorer. So it isn't a surprise, as I said at the start of the video. Although we might have wanted us to go out and beat them 4-5-0 and be amazing. Any of us really surprised that didn't happen. That hasn't happened in years when we've had goal scorers in the team, when we've had real quality in the team. That hasn't happened, never mind now that we've got absolutely nobody there. But as I said, goal was good. McNeil picked it up, played a nice ball to Iwobi. Iwobi, I actually think, does really, really well to pick out Demarai Gray as opposed to having a shot, because at one point there was a gap that opened up for him, and I was screaming at the telly, shoot. And I'm sure a lot of other Blues were as well, but he doesn't. He slots in Demarai Gray, and Demarai Gray with a really, really comfortable, confident finish. Confident finish is what I would say, and that's good to see because we haven't seen a confident Demarai Gray for a while. So to see him open his body well and curl it round the goalkeeper was good to see, because it showed that confidence that he now has. And yeah, as I said, the rest of the half goes on. They have a couple of half chances. We have a couple of half chances. We're not really under much pressure possession-wise. We're dealing well with their press. One thing I did notice was, what I did think was, we weren't put under much pressure, so we were able to pass the ball around. Onana was able to move the ball around well. His passing was good. I think he had something like 89% passing accuracy, which is good. And anytime he was put under a bit of pressure, he done well to use his body. He done really, really well to put his body on the line. Now, look, the Premier League is a different kettle of fish, and there were fouls that he won on Tuesday that he probably won't win in the Premier League because the referees are absolute shithouses and they're shite at the job. But one thing I was really, really impressed with was his ability to put his body on the line, was his ability to move the ball well, but understand, okay, I'm probably not going to be able to beat this next player, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my body on the line and I'm going to force him into fouling me. I'm going to force him into pushing me over. I'm going to force him into clattering into me, and ultimately I'll win the free kick from that. And I thought that was very, very clever for a young lad, only just turned 21 years old, new league, new country, new style, new system. Obviously he needs to learn the fact that he hasn't got an awful lot of time on the ball, and that's something he will learn. He obviously needs to learn, about the pace of the ball in terms of passing and stuff like that. But that natural ability to know when to put your body on the line to win a foul is really, really important. And he done that all day, all night on Tuesday. He done that brilliantly, putting his body on the line and effectively saying, come in, I'm 6'4", so you're not going to out-strength me. You're not going to win the ball back fairly. The only way you're going to win this ball is by fouling me. And he done that on a number of occasions. Another player I was massively impressed with, again, and this seems to go without saying at the moment, and I feel like I'm having this same conversation every single time we talk about a game of footy, is Alex Iwobi. Alex Iwobi, for me, again, was man of the match. And I was thinking about this in work yesterday. When was the last time we had an Everton player who was man of the match 3 games on the bounce? When was the last time that happened? When was the and you could say, this player had a good run in this Dominic Calvert-Lewin early on under Carlo Ancelotti, etc. But there were other players that were performing at that time as well. The reality is, Alex Iwobi has been out and out, unarguably our best player for the last 3 games, maybe even 4 games if you include Chelsea at home. 4 games. So that shows how far he's come and how well he started the season. But also, I think the reason for that isn't just because he's working hard. It isn't just because he's in a new role and he's doing well and he's adapting well. But but it's also because he's confident now. One thing you used to notice with Alex Iwobi was 5, 6 months ago, 7 months ago, Alex Iwobi wasn't the type of player who was coming to pick the ball up. He wasn't the type of player who was screaming for the ball. He was the type of player who, for the most part in a game of footy, would hide, would stay away from the play, stay away from the ball, effectively not be in the game. And when the ball comes to him, he'd panic, he'd get rid of it, he'd usually make a bad decision, and then he'd hide again for another 10, 15 minutes. Now, you're seeing him running towards defenders, and you can see him doing this with his hands. He's saying, give me the ball. I want the ball. I'll get it. I'll turn. I'll move with it. And he's getting it. He's moving. He's going. He's creating space. Again, he's the only Everton player that is consistently moving to create space for himself and for his teammates. There's periods in the game where Damari Gray might make a run, or in the Premier League, Anthony Gordon might make a run, or Dwight McNeil or Rondon might make a run once the bus has turned up to get him. Or one of the defenders might make a run into, down the line. But it's every now and then. Alex Iwobi is the only player at the moment who consistently is always moving around, whether he's got the ball or whether he hasn't got the ball, to create space, to create an angle, to create a period of the pitch where he can pick that ball up and do something with it. And as I said, that's confidence. Alex Iwobi technically isn't any better than he was 6 months ago. Alex Iwobi's ability to pass a ball isn't any better than it was 6 months ago. He hasn't got faster than he was 6 months ago. He might have got a little bit fitter, but he hasn't got ultimately better as a footballer. What he's gotten is more confidence. And that means when he gets the ball, he's more confident in the pass that he makes, getting to where it's intended target. And don't get me wrong, there was a couple of passes he made on Tuesday that failed to get to the target, and that ultimately, I've just had a notification from Everton, which is confirming Delhi's move to Besiktas. So we'll probably do a little video, 2-minute video after this, talking about that one. There you go. Delhi has completed his move to Besiktas on loan, I believe, with a view to buy at the end of it. But he's calling for the ball. He's coming out. He's asking for it. His hands are here. And as I said, when he misplaces a pass now, you can see it doesn't really affect him. Iwobi used to misplace a pass, and okay, there was, fans used to get on his back, and there used to be, if it was at Goodison, there'd be a big groan and there'd be a big sigh and stuff. And you could tell that really, really used to get to him. And then, every time he won the ball after that, he'd misplace the next pass because of the pressure that was on him. Now he misplaces a pass, and not only are fans not really that bothered because they understand, well, this lad's working really hard and he's working harder than anybody else and he's actually creating space and moving angles, but also he doesn't seem fazed by it. It's just like, shit, I misplaced that one. I should do a bit better there. Anyway, let me go and get it. I'll go and collect the ball again, and I'll do something else with it. We are really, really, really starting to see the best of Alex Iwobi. And what the best of Alex Iwobi is, in my opinion, is a confident player who wants the ball, who wants to do things with it, who wants to move with it, and ultimately is, as I said, has been our best player for the last 3-4 games on the bounce, without a shadow of a doubt. And he again, he was the best on the pitch the other day. He had a good involvement in the goal. He was moving well. He was moving the ball. He was working hard. He was battling, and that's all you can really ask, and that's what he's been doing for the last few games. And I expect that to be no different. Come the weekend. Obviously, he was partnered with Onana in that midfield, who, as I said, I think done really, really well. Still very, very, very raw. Quite clear to see. Still very, very, very raw. Still got a lot to learn. Still got a lot of lessons to learn. Still got a lot to, obviously, development to be doing. But you can see there's a player there, and you can see that in the future we will have a really, really, really talented young lad on our hands. We have now, but once he starts to hit those levels of understanding how much time he's got on the ball, how little time he's got on the ball, when to move it, when not to move it, etc., etc., he's some player, because he's big, he's physical, he's confident. Again, similar to Alex Iwobi, he's confident. He's only just come into the league. He'd only just come into the team, and he's got this natural confidence to him where you can tell he's not really fazed by the fact that he's new to the team or new to the league or new to the system. He wants the ball. He wants to move it. He's screaming, he's shouting, he's clapping his teammates, he's talking all of the time. You would think he'd been here for 4 or 5 years, the way he's communicating on the pitch. He communicates more than some players that have been here for 6-7 years, which is a reflection on them as well as him. But I thought he was impressive. I thought he was really, really impressive the other day. And as I said, we go 1-0 up. Fleetwood, I think, had a little bit of a push then. I think they ultimately, knew the fact that they had to try and get back into the game, knew the fact that they had to try and do more to, to compete, and they did. They had a couple of periods where they held the ball and they done a little bit, in possession, and as I said, they created a little bit of space for themselves. And I thought there was a couple of shaky moments in that defence. I thought Reece Welsh done well, had an impressive debut. However, again, there were a couple of moments where you could just tell his positioning, his decision making wasn't quite where it needs to be. But I say wasn't quite needs to be if he's going to be a Premier League centre half. He very clearly isn't at that level of being a Premier League centre half yet, so it doesn't matter because he's still very, very young. He's early on in his development, and he's got all of that to learn, and he will learn all of that. So it's not a case of he's not where he needs to be. He probably is where he needs to be at the moment, but obviously he'll have to learn all of that going forward. I thought Michael Keane was sound. I thought Nathan Patterson was very, very good again. Coleman I thought was sound. Vinagre I thought was hot and cold, but for the most part I thought he done well. And yeah, as I said, it was a very comfortable win in the sense of that it was an extremely boring game of football. It wasn't comfortable in the sense that we were enthralling and we won 4-5-0. It was comfortable in the sense of that Fleetwood didn't really offer much. We didn't really offer much, and the game was decided by a nice finish by Damari Gray after a good bit of play by Iwobi, and ultimately our quality shining through in that period of the game. And to be fair, it was the only real period in the game, certainly from a forward line perspective, where our quality shone through. And that's because we've not got enough quality going forward. As I said before, it's very, very, very clear that Solomon Rondon isn't good enough. Very, very, very clear. And Solomon Rondon needs replacing. And if Everton haven't got a striker, I keep saying, if Everton haven't got a striker by this week, by next week, the reality is the transfer window shuts next Thursday, 7 days today a week. So we're not going to have another striker by Brentford. Assuming that nothing changes over the next 24 hours, we absolutely have to have two in before next week, and we play Leicester on Tuesday. So reality of the situation is I'd want the pair of them in before Tuesday so they can play that game, because Rondon at his best at times isn't great. He's just come off the back of playing 90 minutes on Tuesday, so I don't expect anything from him on Saturday. I really, really don't expect anything from him whatsoever. But yeah, we know all of these issues. We've spoken about them before. They're clear as day. In terms of the game, again, there's not really much more to talk about, is there? I thought we handled ourselves relatively well. I was impressed with Lewis Warrington when he come on. Obviously, Lewis Warrington and Stanley Mills making their professional debuts for Everton. Thought the pair of them done really, really well. I thought specifically Lewis Warrington was great when he come on. Battled, won the ball, worked hard. Again, confident, different type of confidence than Iwobi, because Iwobi's confidence is coming from his performance, where I think Lewis Warrington's confidence is coming from him being a young lad who, is wanting to, sort of make an impression and make a stamp on, who he is and what he brings as a player. But I thought he was good. Thought he done well, worked hard, battled. Tarkowski stepped in and done a professional job. Just solidified that defence and kept it professional and just made sure that we saw the game out really. And that's exactly what we did. We saw the game out. We won 1-0, and we move on now to the next round, where we will play Bournemouth away from home, which is extremely, extremely interesting, of course. Given they're a Premier League team, we could have got an easier draw, but we've managed to draw it against the Premier League team, which is great. I'll probably do a little video about that, just talking a little bit more about that fixture in over the next hour or so. Hernandez says he is also flying with the ball at his feet, dribbling past players and moving to receive the ball all over the pitch, but then also taking the team up the pitch with him. That's about Iwobi, absolutely is. Iwobi has surprised me. Team suffered from a lack of bravery for years, safe passing side to side of the back. Yeah, he's showing bravery, and that's because he's showing confidence, and that shows that when he's a confident player, he will move with the ball, he will try different things, he will try and bring the team forward, and that's why it's important for Alex Iwobi to stay confident, because he is a really important member of this team when he is confident. Semi says Garner Gay has been man of the match before. Yeah, but how many 3 games on the bounce? But how many years ago was that. Damari had missed similar chances in our first 2 games. It was good to see him be clinical. Yeah, absolutely. Good finish by Damari as well, as I say. Tommy says, Cam, you run a great show, mate. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Anyway, look, we are going to leave it there then. As I said, not an awful lot to talk about with this game, to be honest. We won 1-0. It was incredibly boring, but we won, and it was our first win of the season, and hopefully we can take confidence from that, build on it, and then, go into the next couple of games with more confidence. And listen, we need a win in the Premier League. It's as clear as day. We need a win in the Premier League, so let's hope that we can get that on Saturday. Anyway, big thank you all for watching. If you have enjoyed this one, please do hit that like button. If you watched in the live comments, big thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you watch a YouTube video, leave your thoughts down below, and we'll get involved with as many of them as we can as well. But a massive thank you all for watching. We're in the hat. We're through to the next round, and ultimately, that's all that matters. Big thank you all, and we'll see you later.